I thank the chairman. And as others have made the point, although the last argument certainly went far afield from a minor amendment to the MORE Act, the MORE Act is about marijuana legalization across the country, and as I've suggested, I think there are considerable negative implications, and unfortunately they're often ignored. One of the biggest is what's called drugged driving. In Washington State, in Washington State, fatal crash drivers testing positive for THC has more than doubled. In Vermont, since 2010, of course, these are states where legalization is occurring. In Vermont, since 2010, fatal crashes linked to marijuana use have risen by 173%. In Oregon, 47% who died in a car crash in 2018 tested positive for marijuana. More Indiana drivers in deadly car crashes test positive for drugs than for alcohol. In Colorado, the center of this movement, since recreational marijuana was legalized, marijuana-related traffic deaths increased 151%, while all Colorado traffic deaths increased 35%. Since recreational marijuana was legalized, traffic deaths involving drivers who tested positive for marijuana more than doubled, from 55 in 2013 to 138 people killed in 2017. This equates to one person killed every 2.5 days compared to one person killed every 6.5 days. As a North Carolina sheriff put it, marijuana intoxication on our highways is a killer. So governments liberalizing marijuana laws are predictably seeing people die. But here is another disparity. Since we've been talking about disparities some during the course of this debate, law enforcement tell us that they lack a reliable roadside test to detect marijuana use or a uniform standard to measure marijuana toxicity. And yet this bill proceeds without addressing that issue. My amendment would require that the Department of Transportation develop best practices for the recognition and testing of drivers impaired by marijuana no later than 180 days after the date of enactment. Further, it would require that DOT publish these best practices prior to this act taking effect. This would ensure that local authorities can protect their communities from impaired drivers after the inevitable increase in marijuana usage this bill will facilitate. And with that, I yield back.